I'm Pop's going to talk about a new film called Something to Stand For. Talk about a way to celebrate the July 4th, bring in some freedom and patriotism into the conversation. Mike Rowe does it again with a great film that centers around his inner Paul Harvey. That's right, just telling stories. There's really, I don't even know what to call this. This documentary, docudrama, reenactment. He's just telling you these different tales from our past and then just letting you kind of watch this reenactment and just letting you understand how our differences just don't matter that much. So, what a great film. I'm going to get into it before a spoiler warning and this kind of let you have a little feel for the film. Here we go. All right, so something to stand for dot movie. That's right. You can get your tickets. It's going to be a Fathom events type thing, and I hope that that actually sparks so much interest and response. This could go a little bit wide, kind of like Sound of Freedom. This is probably the strongest feeling that I've had watching a film since Sound of Freedom. Like I really just left very emotional and energized and just all the things that you would want in a positive thing. So I'm just going to let Mike Rowe speak for himself in this trailer. That's kind of the best way to talk about it a little bit.
My name's Mike Rowe, and this is Something to Stand For.
So if you don't know much about Mike Rowe, he does a little background. He talks about working on dirty jobs. He talks about his upbringing. There's definitely some emotional moments where you can talk about his past and his heritage, but more importantly, he just kind of just explains this is Paul Harvey. He's this guy, these radio segments, and it was kind of like something to think about, or now you know the rest of the story. You pick up quickly because the first one or two kind of get you, right? Because they kind of sound like they're going in a certain direction. And then when there's a twist, you're like, oh, this isn't going to be what I think it is. So it does a really good job of that. You kind of look out for it a little bit later on in the film, but early on, I think it kind of gets you pretty well.
A film that celebrates a few extraordinary Americans who risked everything to build the nation we call home.
So that's it. That's it in a nutshell, right? It's the nation of history. And instead of focusing on the negative and the things that divide us, this is a film that talks about how did we get here? Here's some stories that you won't believe. Here's some coincidences or acts of fate that kind of align so America could end up where we are. It is not agenda driven, but I know there are going to be people who adamantly see the country in such a negative light are going to be very offended by the film because it is not that at all. It is not trying to run away from our problems. It's not trying to do those things. Rowe is very transparent, talks about, we're a work in progress and look at the mistakes that we made here and things like that. And I will admit, in the middle to latter half of the movie, there's a segment that even if you are not into politics and history and drama and you're just a nerd, there's a segment that'll make you so happy. I just couldn't believe it was so great. And it was like a big nerd segment twist that for some people who don't know that history, it will just blow your mind and you're just going to have such a great time with it.
Americans who gave us something to fight for, something to be grateful for.
And I think that's just it, right? So why do Americans need to honor Independence Day and 4th of July and our heritage? And what are some of the positives? And can we hang our hat on some of those stories instead of focusing on all of these individual shortcomings and problems and things like that? Can we take a pause and talk about the glass being half full for a moment? And that's what this movie does so well. So with that said, I'm going to now just kind of go through some of the elements of the movies. If you don't want any spoilers, I can tell you this is probably the best part to kind of dip out and then come back and tell me what your guys' thoughts after seeing the film. I couldn't recommend this enough. I hate to say this is the best film of the year because it's a different kind of thing, right? Like I said, this is him talking, him reading stories, them doing reenactments of things that actually happened. So it's not like a documentary exactly. It's more just a presentation of factual events that kind of thread this overall arching patriotism theme. So that's kind of it. That's how strong I feel about this movie. That's how much I want to recommend it. Go over to that something to stand for movie, get your tickets, or go directly over to Fathom Events and get your tickets. But more importantly, get down in those comments. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you thought. That's what I want to do. Hear from you guys. All right, let's get to it. So I'm not sure I'm on exactly the right scenes and how they'll align, but I'll do the best I can. There's a scene early in the movie that feels like it's set over a modern event, something that happened within the last couple of presidents, and yet it twists and turns and takes you back to something that goes back all the way back to, I mean, literally just our, I guess, the third president. I mean, it goes all the way back. It's way back. So I was so thrilled when this happened. I kind of picked up on the breadcrumbs and knew where he was going with this and knew what kind of misdirection that he was setting up with it. But I have to be honest, if you follow any of sort of like the drama of the last 10 to 15 years, the concept of terrorism, some of the different threats that are going on in our country today, you'll figure out where he's going, where he's coming from, and just kind of have this great moment to kind of puff up your chest a little bit and have some fun. Then he kind of contradicts that with sort of emotional stuff, which get really more into like memorials and stuff. And I think what he does well is he kind of walks around DC, touches on some different things, and kind of feeds that into this history, kind of like how do we end up here, things like that. It does a great job of just bringing together things about the Marine Corps Memorial, the Vietnam Vet Memorial, talking about how the vets were mistreated. There's a whole segment done about MLK. Obviously, Reagan was brought up in a great, great twist of faith. Oh my gosh, you guys will never forget the emasculator story. Oh my goodness gracious me, that's completely insane. And then you have just this incredible origin of America type thing with this whole wealthy one percenter language and manifesto and all of that, doing your paying your extra taxes for quote the good of the country, and then talking about the fate of these individuals and what they did and how the government turned on them. And then he redirects you and turns you back to something you weren't expecting. I thought that was fantastic. I feel like I'm dancing around spoilers, I think, pretty well. This will be your big tease for your big nerd moment. If you don't know this reference, I have to tell you, this one caught me a little off guard until I knew what historical figure they were connecting to. So for me, I was like, what is going on here? And I kind of had a couple different individuals in my mind. And then when I saw the other historical figure, I'm like, oh, I know what this is. So yes, you nerds, you maybe will pick up the breadcrumbs from this little tease, thread that needle. I'm telling you what, hopefully you know the story, but if you don't, you're just going to be flabbergasted because it's super, super cool. It's mad respect for everyone involved. It was just absolutely awesome. And as I said, with the historical monument things, Iwo Jima, the history, the moments of sacrifice, those kinds of things, he does a great job of putting segments together that kind of do well, kind to talk about things that people went through and then try and talk about where we are. And then there's also a Lincoln Memorial segment about vandalism and graffiti and that kind of thing. And there's a great quote about talking about how, it's so much better to how we move forward, right? It's worth improving and it's also worth preserving. And I thought that was just brilliant. So he has some of these emotional moments and things like that that are like tied in obviously with like these type of memorials, but then he also has the other things that deal with like hope and positive nature and things like that. So we do get a little levity. We get a little funny. The truck doesn't start in the beginning. You know it's going to start. And then once you see it running, you're like, come on, dude, it's kind of funny. But all right, it's good. There you go. So anyway, something to stand for dot movie. Like overall, this was a great rewatch for me. I can't wait to watch it again with Mrs. Pops. Get her feel. I didn't know if this would be up her thing. It is kind of dry in moments, but never very long. If you are a fan of Paul Harvey or you understand that type of approach to communicating and entertaining, this will be your kind of thing. If you're okay with history, and again, 4th of July is a great time to drop this. Hopefully, folks can get out there and see it. I can't say enough positive things about it. Something to stand for, folks. Get out there, do your part. Let me know what you guys think if you do go see it. Thank you for watching. I'm Pops.